Welcome to this presentation of Creo Simulate Live Flow Analysis. For today's demonstration, we're going to be working with a new muffler design for our Interceptor motorcycle. So you'll see I'm going to stay in Creo the whole time. You can see here, I'll do the cross section. You can see what we're working on inside of here. But to do an analysis, I don't leave Creo. I don't leave my design environment. I simply say, let's go ahead and do a simulation. So in this case, I'm going to do a fluid simulation study. So I'll set up my domain. There's no fancy modeling and so forth. I just use the Creo design that I have. And obviously, in case of a muffler, pretty straightforward. Here's where we're going in, and here's where we're going out. And then it automatically builds the internal volume that says that's where our flow is going to go. So I'll start there. Once I have that volume set up ready to go, I'll go ahead and define it. What sort of material are we working with? And carbon dioxide is a pretty close approximation of what's coming out of this motorcycle. So let's go ahead and set the fluid domain to be just that. Let's talk about velocity. What sort of volume are we getting into this muffler from the motor? So I'll go ahead and say on this front end, let's put a magnitude, basically a pressure, set the right units, meters per second, sound right. And I'll use a negative because it's going in. So there's my flow velocity. I'll basically do the same thing, set a temperature. What's the typical temperature I want to run this study at for this gas analysis? Got an initial temperature, got prescribed, and of course outlet pressure. What happens on the other end? Well, there's my outlet. I'll define that as the outlet and say that's just zero. That's just outside air. So we've got pressure coming in, got gases going through. Let's go take a look at it. So a lot of different options. I can optimize for speed if I want to take a quick look. If I want to look at the accuracy of this one, I'm really getting close to a good design. I'll say take that. And then I just say do it. Again, I don't go away for a while and so forth. The flow immediately starts up, and I can see how the flow is going to work. So I can, lots of different ways to look at it. I can look at the particles, go ahead and set the size and transparency and so forth. Really want to understand how is this material flowing here? What's it doing? Where is it backing up? And of course, where is it coming out? So you can see right on top of the Creo model. Again, nothing to model, nothing to set up geometry-wise. I'm just using my Creo model of the muffler. Lots of ways to look at it. Let's do cross sections. Let's look at the direction field, actually see what direction everything's going. And of course, this is Creo. I've got a dragger. I can move that cross section back and forth, really get an understanding of how it's working, really see the flow in this particular part. So that looks pretty good. Again, back to results, lots of different ways to really analyze it. I can set up a probe. Probably one of the most important things on a muffler is going to be, okay, at the end, the gas is coming out. What's the velocity? So I can actually save that as a probe that's always available. I can look at it. I can do a graph of the values that I'm getting. But that's what I want to see. So there I've got a good velocity coming out. Again, I can let it run for a while, let it settle down, and then start making changes, because that's the whole key is, all right, maybe this is a pass, but can we make it better? What can we do to make a newer, more interesting one and use CSL Flow to do that? Well, let's start up a design exploration session that lets me do lots of playing around, if you will, but really doing design analysis. Maybe these internal baffles, you're on the second section. What would happen if they were longer? We did that on another bike, so let's just do that. So what I do is I make the changes inside of Creo and say, yep, I want it to be this big, this long, this small, whatever, normal sort of Creo design changes. So now I've got that, but notice what happens. As soon as I've done that, it restarts the flow analysis, changes how it looks, and I can see immediately what's the effect on that end velocity, the muffler outlet. What happens when I make those changes? That's what CSL Live Flow Analysis gives you, this ability to make design changes and then say, oh, what happened? And not send it off to an analysis study, come back tomorrow, try to remember, which of these studies was I working on? Well, here you've got it all inside of Creo. And I've got Dex keeping track of what I'm doing. I can even set that checkpoint, say, yep, there's a long pipe. Another thing we've done before is these rear baffles, we put holes in them. Right? It's a very common way to work a muffler. So what happens if we do that? Well, let's turn those on. Immediately see a very different kind of flow going through with holes in that baffle. So I get a different velocity. I've really bumped up that exit velocity. That's probably part of what I'm shooting for here. But let's look at the pressure. You can see I've kind of really smoothed out that pressure flow at the back. What's the max values? Where is it occurring? They do all sorts of work there. Really understand what happens when you make that kind of a design change. So again, cross section, you can really see the flow going through those holes in the baffles. And look at that direction field again. Yep, almost completely reversed the flow through there with the longer tubes, and really got some of the more parameters, the velocity, the pressures that I'm looking for. So I like that one. So let's again, use Dex, save this. So this way I can go back and forth. I'm not going down a rat hole. I can say, oh, this is better, this is worse. Let's go back to that design, run this analysis, show other people this sort of work. Say here, when we tried this, look what it did to the flow. And then they can say, okay, well, what happened to others? Well, Dex allows you to change all of that. And that's really where you want to go. Let's do one more set of changes. Up in the front here, basically just got a solid with a bunch of pipes going through it, but let's change that. Right? Let's take this body here in the center, and let's go ahead and make some modifications to it. All right? So let's go over and say, yep, well, if we have nothing, we do that, but we're going to do a little fancier. Let's say we're going to set up a lattice. And this lattice could be something that is done with additive, done with wire EDM. But I want to say take this volume, this whole area in here, and let's put a barrier, or boundary rather, here at the front, and one at the back. And instead of this being just wide open, or in this case, drilled holes, let's make it something a little more complex. Let's use a lattice. Let's use the Creo additive manufacturing capability to say, all right, start here in the center, and I want to put a 2.5D lattice that's more of a hexagon shape. Let's go ahead and set a size. Something like that would probably be about right. All right, and then I'll go ahead and say fill that out. Let's put a little thicker wall on these. And now you can see basically that pipe section, instead of just simple holes, is now a whole lot more complex. We've got a hexagonal flow body through there. So now, what did that do to my model? Well, that's just it. You're in Creo Simulate Live. I can say, show me the pressures. Show me what that does front to back. Show me the velocity. What's that doing for our exit velocity? A lot of different ways to look at it. Look at the min, look at the max, and really understands what's happening with this muffler. And because I'm indexed, I'm going to do a checkpoint. Show me, keep this and say, hey, look what happened when I did it with the lattice. Really allows me to do my job as a designer and say this is the best possible and do it fast because it's all within the Creo environment. I didn't have to go outside. I can simply make changes right here. Even the simplest thing for muffler design is what's the exit diameter? Well, if I go start playing with that, let's make this a little bit bigger exit pipe. What does that do to the flow? Well, there it is. There's my probe is still always working. So I can look at this and say, yep, that's the kind of flow I was looking for. That's a good exit velocity. I can make it, any value, but really it's not just sort of a I designed this, here's the result. It's like, no, let's try this, let's try that. Let's make the best possible design that I can do by leaving it all inside of Creo, doing that analysis, saving the results so that I can always go back and make modifications, show everybody what we've done. So that is Creo Simulate Live Flow Analysis.